There is your knotted style friendship bracelet. I have my string cut, and it's enough to go around my wrist about 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll gather them all evenly at this one end, and I'll tie them in a knot, leaving a few inches at the end here. You don't want to tie right up against the edge, because this string, when you're finished, will be what you'll use to tie it on your wrist or your friend's wrist. So I'll just make a regular knot and pull tight. I'll show you that knot again. Gather my strings together at the end, and you make a knot by forming a loop and then pushing the end through the hole and pulling tight. Make sure that you leave enough tail on the end, because you'll want to have that so that you can tie it around your wrist. Pull that snug. So here's my string, and I've knotted them together at one end, making sure to leave a few inches on the end dangling. And now I need to secure these strings so that they'll be held flat and secure against my working surface. So I'm just going to do that with this piece of masking tape. So here's that extra bit of string at the end, and I'm just going to tape it up here to the top of my table or desk. My string is fairly long, so you're not always going to see the ends of it. It's dangling off the edge of my table, and these do have a tendency to get tangled, and you just kind of have to work with that and figure out how to keep them as mess-free as possible. So now I'm going to arrange my string in the order that I want my stripes. I have 2 blue, 2 yellow, and 2 red pieces of string, just because those are the colors I happen to have available to me. And I'm going to alternate them. I'm going to go red, yellow, blue, then another red, yellow, blue. So I'm organizing my string right here in the order that I want my stripes to happen on my bracelet. So from left to right here, I have red, yellow, blue, red, yellow, blue. And I'm going to be working from left to right. So the leftmost string, in this case the red string, is the first string I'm going to use to make my knots. So I'm going to take this string, this is my working string, and it's going to do 2 knots around this string. It's going to do 2 knots around this string, 2 knots around this string, 2 knots around this string, and 2 knots around that string. So that will form the stripe across. And then eventually this string will end up over here on the right side, and I'll start all the way over again. So here's how that looks. Again, this right here, the string on the left, is my working string. And I'm going to knot it around the next string on the left. I do that by finding the shape of the number 4. So between my working string, this red string right here, and this yellow string, I can see that I'm drawing the number 4. There's the vertical part, and then this angle, that sort of triangle of the number 4 right there. So I find that number 4, and then this tail is going to go underneath the other piece of string, underneath the, in this case, yellow piece of string, underneath and through. I want to pull that tail all the way out, and then just pull that knot very tight, holding on to the string that I'm working on and pulling tight with my working string. So that's 1 knot around this first string. I'm going to do 2 knots. So here's the number 4, again working on the same piece of string. There's the number 4. I take this tail and pull it through. This is where it can sort of get tangled. You want to make sure that you keep them straight. And then I just pull this working yarn up, making a nice tight knot. So I've done 2 knots around that first string. And now I'm going to move on to the next one. So here's my red working string. I just did 2 knots on this first yellow piece of string, and now I'm moving on to my next string, in this case blue. And I'll do the same thing. Find that number 4. And then I take this tail and pull it through, and you'll eventually figure out a way that it's most comfortable for you to make those knots. I'm just trying to show you the number 4 as many times as I can. And then pull the tail of that working yarn through and then pull it tight. So I've done 2 knots. Let me just pull this blue string down so that I'm holding that one firm. So I've done 2 knots on each of these. 2 knots on this yellow string, 2 knots on this blue string. Now I'm going to move on to my next one. In this case it's another red string, so it's more difficult to see the number 4 here. So there's the number 4, and then I'm pulling my working string through. Pull it tight, that's 1 knot, and then do a second knot right there. There's the number 4, and I'll pull it straight. I've done 2 knots on that one. I move on to the next. In this case, it's going to be the yellow string. There's my number 4. Pull the tail through, hold on to this yellow string, and pull it tight. That's 1 knot. I need to do 2. There's the number 4. Pull the tail through, hold on to this yellow string, and pull my working string tight. I've done 2 knots on that string, and I move on to my next one. This is the last string. I'm holding this blue string, the one that I'm working around, nice and tight. Form that number 4, and then pull that tail through. Hold the blue string tight as I pull that one up. That's 1 knot, and then I make another one. There's the number 4, and I pull it tight. So that's my first row, which you might not be able to see because it's so tiny. But now this piece of red yarn is over on the right, and I'm going to go all the way over to the yarn on the left again, which now is this yellow string, and this becomes my new working string. So I'm going to use this yellow string to do 2 knots around the blue, 2 knots around the red, 2 knots around the yellow, 2 knots around this next blue, and then 2 knots around this red. Make the number 4, pull it through, do 1 knot, and then do 2. Number 4, pull the tail through, and pull it through. Moving on to the next. So now I'm using this yellow string to go around this red one. Do the number 4, pull it through. Again, there's the number 4. Pull the tail through and pull it tight. Number 4, pull it through, pull it tight. Number 4, pull it through, pull it tight. Number 4, pull it through, hold onto this blue string while I pull the yellow one tight. That's 1 knot. Now I'll do 2. So around each of these strings I do 2 knots. 1 knot, and then there's 2. So now I have 2 rows up here, up at the top. I have my red row with that first string, and then there's my yellow row with the next string. And that yellow string is all the way over on the right now. My next piece of working string is this blue, and I'll do the same thing. And this pattern just repeats until you have the desired length of your bracelet or your necklace or your keychain or whatever you're doing. There's the number 4. Reach through, pull it around. 1, 2. Next one. 1, 2. I'm trying to show you that number 4 as often as I can, because once you know what that shape looks like, you can also get used to how it feels like as you do it with your fingers. Number 4, pull through. Number 4, pull through. Doing 2 of these knots around each string. Finished with that string, and now I have 3 stripes on my bracelet. 1, 2, 3. Here's a close-up of what it looks like so far. This right here was my first row in red, then yellow, then blue, red, yellow, blue, red, yellow, blue. And as you can see, as I work along with my leftmost yarn, in this case it's blue, as I form those 2 knots around each string, that's how my next stripe is made. 1, 2, I'm zoomed in so far that you can't actually see that I am still making that the shape of the number 4 as I make my knots. But I just wanted to give you this up close view so that you can see what it looks like as those knots are made. It's important to do 2 knots around each string. That first knot just kind of gives you, I don't know, kind of a sideways look, but it's that second knot where it gives it kind of a square look. I think it's important to note that it doesn't really matter how your hands get the knots to work. It doesn't matter like whether you hold the string like this or whether you hold the string like this, or you'll see my hands move in a particular way and yours don't have to move exactly that way. The important thing is, what is the string doing? So you always want to come back to, do I see that number 4? And then can I reach into the center of the 4 and then pull that tail through? That's the important thing, not how your hands do it, because everybody's hands will make these knots in a different way, but what is the string doing? Am I finding the number 4 right here, and then reach into the center of the 4 and pull that string through? So you'll find the way that's most comfortable for you. I like to take my right hand and hold the string that I'm working around, and then use my left hand to form that number 4. While I secure it with my right hand also, and then I'll use my left hand to reach in and around and pull that tail through. But yours might look different. The important thing is, what is the string doing? Am I finding that number 4? Am I reaching in and making sure that I pull that tail through? You also want to make sure that the string that you're working around, that's forming the vertical line of that 4, that you continue to hold that one firm, that one stays straight, and it's your working yarn that does all the loops. So here's the string I'm working around. That's the vertical part of the number 4. My working string makes that angle, and then I reach into the center of the number 4, find the tail, pull it around, making sure that I keep that vertical line in the 4 nice and firm. So number 4, reach in, pull the tail. Keep this one nice and straight and pull the working yarn tight. Here's number 4. Reach in, find the tail, pull it tight. And you can see that those stripes continue to repeat. So here I have done my knots to my desired length, and it is enough to go around my wrist with just a little bit of extra. And so I will just go ahead and tie a regular knot at the end of it. Right here. I want to get it as close to the bracelet portion as I can. And then I can untape it or unpin it or however you've fastened it. And there is my friendship bracelet. I would give this to my friend and I would actually have to tie it onto their wrist for them using these extra bits of string that you left. So there it is. There is your knotted style friendship bracelet. You can make them all kinds of colors and stripe patterns. Ta-da!